Hi everyone, 270HA19 here, and today I want to talk about Labor Day. This is my thoughts about what I personally think about Labor Day. So, don't mind the crickets in the background and the noisy neighbors in the background because this is what you get when you live in a multi-dwelling unit. And if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes. Right. So, Labor Day. What can I remember about Labor Day? Well, when I was younger, especially living here in Lawrence, Massachusetts, there's lots to think about Labor Day. Well, going to school, for those who grew up in Lawrence in the 80s and 90s, it actually meant that school always started 2 days after Labor Day. No matter what year, it always started 2 days after Labor Day. Plus, our parents, they didn't have to go to work that day, so we got to spend some time with them, at least one of the days, which was really nice. There were times that we had some big family gatherings on that day, from what I've seen in lots of Labor Days. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Now, at the age of 44, how do I see Labor Day nowadays? Well, from how I see it now, I just talked to my closest family members that are around near me. I don't have much family gatherings in my house versus when my parents used to have it in their house. And plus, also, I work in a place that if it wasn't for Labor Day, that they would have to close the building, we'd be there right now. We'd be working on a day like today. Especially from the culture where I come from, they wouldn't even consider holidays like this. Versus the company that I worked for. Well, let me see. The company that I'm working for now, called the Little USB. Let's put it that way. Yeah. If we would move into a building where the president would have thought where we'd moved, oh my God, I'd be working on a day like today. But thankfully, at least we work in a building that they close it on Labor Day, so at least we don't have to work on Labor Day, which is really nice. Really nice. So I'm thankful for that. Well, the previous company that I worked for, called Taikuna, they always considered Labor Day as a holiday. They had this holiday list that they would print out every year. And they would always print it out on September of the year prior to the following year where the holiday list would be. So let's say if we needed to know all of the holidays of, for example, the year 2022, then the company would actually print out all of the holidays in the month of September for now, so we would know what's going on for the year 2022. Yes. So, yeah, Taikuna always considered the holiday of Labor Day. And we would always get emails of Labor Day and how was it worth to the company, and sometimes they would have us write like little statements of what we thought about Labor Day and so forth. Yeah, that was Taikuna. That was Taikuna. So, interesting enough, another thing that I also remember currently about Labor Day is that in my family, the only one who's employed right now in a company is me right now. All of my siblings and parents, they're all disabled right now because of their different reasons, which I don't want to mention on video at the moment. That's their business, so I'm going to respect that. However, I am going to mention one of the members by the name of Norton. This morning, I had a little conversation, or excuse me, this afternoon, I had a little conversation with Norton from the Norton Hills. And I sent him a message early this morning about his anniversary, what happened on September 6, 2020. He went through a little bit of a hardship, and now he's adapting to a new life. And interesting enough, on a day like today, even though it's the year anniversary, he is adapting to that life. And interesting enough, that what happened to him last year ended up on Labor Day this year. Quite interesting. You know, it also kind of makes me think as well too, because when it comes to the life that Norton had to adapt to, kind of makes me think of a few things. First off, what does this imply for employers and employees? Well, the employee has to always respect the employer and always have to thank them for the opportunity of working in their company. And to always maintain respect at all times. However, the employer has to always appreciate what the employee does, because if it's not for the employees, then the employers won't be where they are right now. But sometimes we work in certain companies that the employer will pay the employee their money in exchange for the employee's time. And there are times that, okay, the employee could be recognized, which is really nice. And if you happen to fall in that category, and if you like the job where you're at, keep the job. Make sure you take care of your job for as much or as long as you can work there. If they value you, keep that job. Don't let go of that job. But for other employers who don't appreciate their employees on what they do, you got a problem. Make sure you have your resume ready and try to look elsewhere. Which reminds me, over at Taikuna, I had a supervisor within a 6-year period, and I'm gonna say from 2014 all the way to 2020. And the reason why I went to work for the little USB is because of the way she was. And yes, this supervisor, you know, she drove a big white SUV, by the way. And this big white SUV, I call it the nepotism. There's so much within the word of nepotism that just applies to her that is just insane. Because let's just say that I didn't fall within her category of how she had to appreciate the employees. I was just there as a little wisdom tooth or something, something that was just there because just being there. I had a previous supervisor, previous to her, that was just the total opposite. So the previous supervisor's name, I'm just gonna change their names anyways, just to protect their identities. But the previous supervisor, I'm gonna call her Jill, because Jill was really, really, really awesome. Even though Jill was a tough cookie, but at least at the end of the day, she always made sure that we had our job securities and that we wouldn't have any problems at all. However, Caravera, oh wow, she's the one that drove the big white SUV called Nepotism. Yep, it's for someone else. So, as she drove this big white SUV called Nepotism, there's a lot to talk about her. I can describe you a little bit about her. And interesting enough, She talks like she had this nose surgery, and she would talk like this, you see. Just like that. And this individual would always laugh in the meetings all the time. She would always laugh no matter what. I remember when I would be working at my cubicle over at Taikuna, I would always hear this individual laugh. Within the hour, she probably laughed about maybe 20 to 30 times, whatever the subject that they're talking about in there, but her laugh was pretty loud. Yep, that was her laugh. All the time. But interesting enough, when we had our meetings, that she would probably pull me into her office and we would have meetings about responsibilities or goals or so forth. Oh, she'd never laugh at that. But that's fine. That's fine with me. It's the big reason as to why I went to work for the little USB. So, good riddance to Caravera, the Japanese woman that always carried the nepotism blood within her. Now, over at the little USB, it's quite interesting, the fact that everything started there very chilling as well too, but the true colors also started showing up in there too. Now, the little USB, when you talk about USB, a lot of people would think it's the computer thing. But no, it's an acronym for something that I'll talk about in the future. We'll just leave it at that because that's what I'm currently working at right now. And yeah, I've been coming out a little bit tired and exhausted from the little USB, and this is the little USB, not the big Taikuna, because the little USB has a lot to offer. And there's something that I just want to talk about that in a future video, in a future subject. But yeah, man, today is just one of those days that I've rested plentifully, and that was what Labor Day was for me. And I had a nice 2-hour conversation with Norton from the Norton Hills, like I mentioned previously. And it was a great day to relax, a great day to catch up on my rest, because tomorrow the mission over at the little USB begins once again. And it's interesting when you look at the situation of the kids nowadays. I had mentioned previously that when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, school always started 2 days after Labor Day. It was always like that. However, for the kids nowadays, they have to start in the month of August. I would say like maybe August 20, August 21, and so forth. So they start out quite early. Way. Sorry. Just vlogging. So like I was saying, kids nowadays, they have to start school about a week or two before Labor Day, at least maybe August 20 or August 21. The earliest that I've seen nowadays. Where back then, we would start after Labor Day, and we'd leave, I would say, right towards mid or the end of June, right within our days. But these kids, they leave early nowadays. Sometimes they have to leave at the end of June because of the snow days, but suffice to say, they have to start really early. And I remember that school back then, even though we started 2 days after Labor Day, and let's say if school ended on June 15th of the other year, of course, like right after the school year finishes, our schedule going into school would be at 8 a.m. all the way up until 1:45 p.m. And then by the time it was 2:30, we would be home. And now you see that these kids, they go to school, they start school at 8 a.m. and they don't go to school till about what? They start school about at 8 a.m. and they don't go home, I'd say from around maybe 3:30 or 4 or 4:30 or so approximately. If you have a child that's going to school, let me know. Put it down in the comments if you're experiencing that right now, if you're a parent. And if you're a child or a teenager watching this video, drop it down in the comments too. I'm curious to know. Also, one last thing I also wanted to mention. Here in Lawrence, Massachusetts, there's usually the Italian festival that we usually have on the weekend before Labor Day. And that usually happens every year. The only year it didn't happen was last year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But other than that, all of the years that I've known, the festival was always on and the activity never missed a beat, whether if it was rain or shine. It was always there. All right, so drop it down in the comments. Let me know what you think about Labor Day. What are your thoughts about Labor Day and what do you remember and what are your experiences about that? I'm curious to know. This is 270 EHA 19 simply saying thank you for watching.